26th. If I could ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take a roll call this evening. Mr. Rapic.
Present.
Mr. Rossetti.
Present.
Neal.
Here.
Mr. McBride.
Here.
Ms. Duhai.
Here.
Assuming I'm here.
That's the big.
Yeah. I could ask everyone to review the minutes from our last meeting.
I have a change, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Village attorney at that meeting was James Maselli, not Marcus Richter.
Does he prefer Jim?
I think James is fine. Well, you can ask him yourself. He's joined us remotely.
Hi, everybody.
Sir?
Good. I'll go on mute.
So officially speaking, for our minutes corrections, do you prefer James or Jim?
James is fine. Well, somebody calls me Jimmy, but James is fine.
If there are no other questions, comments, or corrections, I will entertain a motion to approve meeting minutes with the correction to the noted village attorney.
I'll make that motion.
Oh, second.
Ms. Duhai?
Aye.
Mr. Neal?
Aye.
Mr. Rapic?
Aye.
Mr. Rossetti?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Alrighty, I will entertain a motion to table the public hearing for a petition for zoning text amendment regarding the keeping of chickens.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Rapic?
Aye.
Mr. Rossetti?
Aye.
Mr. Neal?
Aye.
Ms. Duhai?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
All right. Do I have to bang the hammer, the gavel?
Please.
I'd like to open this public hearing for a petition for zoning text amendment regarding kennels and animal hospitals as a permitted use in the M1 restricted industrial zoning district. Do we have anyone signed up to speak on this particular item?
No, sir. If I could just note for the record that notice of this public hearing was published appropriately in the Daily Herald between 15 and 30 days before tonight. That notice should be in your packet.
Any further possible information on this, Mr. Ray, that you
Yes,
might?
sir. So I wrote a single agenda supplement for the next, for the two items here, kennels, animal hospitals, and then also food pantries. So basically, there's a local business in town that's looking to relocate. And they're currently in kind of the downtown industrial district. They'd like to stay there. There's not a ton of places available for that. One of the areas they'd like to move into is an M1 district, and they asked about it, and staff looked at some other municipalities' codes, and it seemed like a lot of them allow this a little more generously than the village of Hampshire does. So rather than force them to rezone the property and come in for a special use, we thought we'd ask the Planning and Zoning Commission to do a text amendment to just make it allowable. I think I noted in the packet there that we are suggesting some conditions, I guess, or restrictions on these things. So there's outdoor space allowed for daily use, but it wouldn't be allowed for, overnight kenneling of animals outside or anything like that. So those are just, I think, points 1 through 3 under action needed are recommended from staff. And if you want to modify those at all, it's of course up to you.
As there is no one signed up to speak in this public hearing on the matter, I will close public hearing. Next agenda item, motion to recommend approval of a zoning text amendment to remove kennels and animal hospitals as a special use in the M2 General Industrial Zoning District and to add the same as a permitted use in the M1 Restricted Industrial Zoning District, subject to certain conditions. Questions, comments, deliberation? Discussion?
Josh, where do kennels currently exist in our zoning?
They could be as a special use in the M2 district or a special use in the B3 district, I believe it is.
So if we remove the special use restriction in M2 will no longer will no longer be able to have an animal kennel?
They still will. Everything allowed in M1 is also allowed in M2 and M3, so it cascades down.
Gotcha.
So we're removing it from M2, adding it to M1, it'll still stay. It'll just broaden the ability, or broaden the areas that it can be in a little bit.
Okay. How does this compare to other localities around us?
So I checked a half a dozen or so. It would be a little more, I don't want to use the word liberal, but a little more generous than Huntley, but it would really closely match Gilbert's, Pingree Grove, Marengo, and Woodstock. A couple of nearby cities did not really have zoning provisions for it. I think Elburn was the other one that kind of has it similar to how we currently do as a special use in M2. But zoning codes don't perfectly match up across communities, so
Right.
it closely matches those four I mentioned though.
Thank you.
Where does 8 PM for an end time for the outdoor space come from? Is that
It's
similar?
arbitrary.
Arbitrary?
Yeah, that just, there's other provisions in our code that's, liquor licenses and outdoor entertainment, things like that. But that's arbitrary, it didn't come from any standard.
So it didn't come from Hampshire Park Resort based off their operations?
No, it didn't. They currently don't have an outdoor space. So
Everything's indoor for them right now.
So the 6 AM to 8 PM is just for the outdoor use.
Okay.
If their hours of operations were until 9 or 10 o'clock, they would just have to have everything inside after 8 PM. And that was just to avoid outdoor barking and things like that later at night. But if you wanted to extend that or restrict it further, by all means.
Do we know how many animals or essentially potentially how many animals they would be looking at overnight?
No, I don't. I mean, there's no provision for that right now, so it's not really limited. It'll just be, I suppose, I don't know if the health department has anything to do with kennels or not, but they might have some regulation on, square feet per animal or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Current operations, it's only a half dozen.
Grace, can I ask you to speak up a little bit, please?
Sorry, I know current operations, it's only a half dozen or so. Board my dog with them sometimes.
I'll just note that the screening is, 0.3 there, the outdoor spaces must be effectively screened. That's very similar to, other outdoor allowances in the industrial districts. And then, some properties, residential properties will abut in M1 every now and then, especially in the old part of town. So just an effort to keep a little more privacy, a little more separation between the outdoor areas for dogs or whatever pets may be.
If we're thinking about possible residents, is 6 AM a good start time, or does 8 to 8 make better sense rather than 6 to 8?
Let's say we follow what our noise ordinance is.
What is
that?
that?
7 to,
I don't think
well,
so.
it's 7, doesn't it?
There's construction hours for permitting. I think for residential areas, that is, I can pull that up real quick. I think it's 7
I thought it
for,
was 7 AM.
Those were 6 AM, that's what time Flood Runner starts to pick up.
Yeah, they do.
I can tell you about 5 seconds. So construction hours are,
Last I recall, I know we do have some construction hours, but as far as general noise ordinances, I
Right.
don't recall having any.
correct, yeah, that's actually something Chief Pan has brought to the staff level to discuss an ordinance change, but currently for construction hours, for what it's worth, for a residential area, it is 7 AM. For a business or manufacturing district, it is 6 AM. So at 6, it would be consistent, even if you abut residential. But again, you can further restrict it if you'd like.
Being a dog owner, I know usually first thing in the morning is more preferable than later.
And when do construction hours terminate? in
For
industrial?
residential, it's 9 PM, and for commercial, it's 8 PM.
Any additional further questions, comments? Okay.
Just a question for number 2, would it make sense to put an added provision in there that if their property abuts or backs up to the residential side, they would have to abide by the residential construction? If it's surrounded by industrial, keep it at the industrial 6 to 8, but if it's along the tracks or butting up to a residential back area, they end up having it, the terms for what residential would be.
We don't impose that currently on, construction in an industrial area. Even if you abut a residential area, you still are within construction of
Okay.
industrial. So it seems in line with what would be construction for an industrial area anyways.
We concur.
Anything else? Further? All right, I will entertain a motion to recommend approval of zoning text amendment to remove kennels and animal hospitals as a special use in the M2 General Industrial Zoning District and to add the same as a permitted use in the M1 Restricted Industrial Zoning District subject to certain conditions.
So moved.
I'll second.
Mr. Rosetti?
Aye.
Mr. Raffich?
Aye.
Mr. Neal?
Aye.
Ms. Duhai?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
I will open a public hearing for a petition for zoning text amendment regarding food pantries as a permitted use in various zoning districts. Does anyone sign up to speak on this one?
No, sir. Just note for the record that, again, public notice of this hearing was posted or published in the Daily Herald between 15 and 30 days of this date. It's in your packet. And there's not really a lot of impetus for this. The food pantry has been at its location for a long time, so it's proverbially grandfathered in. But we'd like to take the opportunity at this time to add it into the zoning, different zoning classifications as a permitted use. We don't really see a reason to restrict it unless all of you do. So staff is just recommending basically every district, almost all of the districts, be 1, 2, 3, and 4, office manufacturing, M1, 2, and 3, just to widely encourage this type of public service. And they might have different needs. Some are more retail style, like the one in Genoa. Some of them have more of an industrial bent with more storage for food, like the one in Hampshire currently does.
In that case, with no one signed up to speak on this, I will close the public hearing. On to our next agenda item. Ladies and gentlemen, any questions, comments on the zoning text amendment to add food pantries as permitted use in the previously mentioned zoning districts? In that case, then I will entertain a motion officially to recommend approval of a zoning text amendment to add food pantries as a permitted use in the B1, B4, OM office,
I'll make the motion.
as noted. Can I take that?
That'll work.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Raffich.
Aye.
Mr. Rosetti.
Aye.
Mr. McBride.
Aye.
Ms. Duhai.
Aye.
Mr. Neal.
Aye.
And notating here, I apologize. And now we are entering into our next general and open discussion of outdoor lighting regulations. We have had some input and guidance from one of our fellow commissioners. Who would like to take the floor on this one, Mr. Ray or Ms. Duhai?
Sure. Currently, our zoning code does not have photometric requirements. There is some vague language in the parking chapter. But in the course of my day-to-day business, I run into photometric requirements in different zoning ordinances. This was a good example from Will County that I thought we might be able to adopt with some suggested language changes to make it more applicable to Hampshire. But generally, a half a foot candle at property line is pretty typical. That's King County standard. And that's in a lot of our adjoining zoning codes is that half a foot candle. And then Will County even further restricts it just from parking lights to just outdoor lights in general. So lighting for, landscaping, lighting for, a truck dock, just trying to expand it upon what other different kinds of lights that we have on the property. And then I also made the recommendation not to impose time restrictions or time limits from a safety perspective. Just because that's operator and designers requirements, not something I want to get into.
Okay. And what is the reason we're discussing this now? You say we have no requirements and no restrictions in our ordinance?
Our ordinance, and I can pull it out if we need to, it basically says that a parking surface should not reflect light. In terms of that in the parking chapter, I know there's also some requirements in the signage chapter as well, but the signage one is a little even more vague. In the course of the light property and future zoning, really, lighting and light spill is very much a public topic. And if we put some requirements on it and we have something that's measurable, you can take a light meter and read it. And Will County actually talks about how you do the measurements. Just putting something that's measurable and enforceable on the books, it seems like good practice, especially since a lot of our neighboring communities have such requirements too.
Well, my question was, at present, we don't have any restrictions at all?
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is that, as you pointed out in the sign regulations, it's got a really difficult regulation which says, if I get it right, based on the width of the sign, you're supposed to measure it at parallel height in the air, and it's supposed to be 25-foot candelas from there. We don't have a boom truck that we can measure stuff that high up in the air. It's more prudent to measure something at the adjacent property where you actually care about the light spilling over. Anyway, so I've asked our engineer to take a look. I don't know. We currently accept photometric plans for new projects. I don't know what standards we use, if there's some standard EEI just uses in other communities or not. So I've asked them to just take a look and see if this will, conflict with anything substantially or what they think about it, but I'm sure it'll be fine. The only other comment that I had was there's a note in there about outdoor recreation facilities and their heights, right? And the ordinance presented as an example from Mill County, it says 60 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Our outdoor recreational zoning district has a limit of 30 feet in it currently. So if you wanted to change that, you could. But the limit right now is 30 feet. I think the village created that district about a year and a half ago. And then it doesn't say a specific time that the lights have to be shut off. It just says 30 minutes after end of business. So you can consider that as well.
Professionally, I would highly recommend against any requirements like
Requirements like what?
like requirements to shut off your parking lot lights 30 minutes after close of business or after 11 p.m. What if you're at Staff Fitness, a 24-hour facility? Or, what if restaurant closes at 11, but wait staff is there till midnight? That's kind of a liability issue that I don't think is our liability to hold, it's the property owners.
What impact would this have on, so adding new text to our village code, what impact would this have on existing businesses, properties?
Attorney Vaselli, Can you speak to that? I mean, I know generally for zoning code matters, things that are existing are grandfathered in. Would that still be the case for things like lighting regulations?
Yes.
So if they ever had to, say replace the lights, or if they were gonna do a redesign and they were gonna add new lights or whatever, they would be subject to the new regulations, but, the existing things up there right now would get to stay. The last is talks about the enforcement and like the permit process for it. We don't take zoning applications for every project, so I would recommend that we I'll think about what we could put in there as far as, usually it comes with an engineering submittal before we even get to the permit stage. But we'll come up with something to put in there for who checks it out. It'll probably be our engineers.
I got a question about temporary holiday lighting, line 6, or item number 6. This would not apply to holiday lighting? Do I read this correctly?
Yes,
So people can use as bright a light as they want for holiday lighting?
we could modify it.
I'm just asking.
For no more than 30 days.
Well, yeah.
You ever seen this guy's house at Christmas?
I'm assuming this would have to be cherry picked as far as application to zoning. It's highway commercial, almost all of this is almost not applicable to the truck stop. Well, we've already had plenty of variances and special use cases, and they've got, 150-foot signs up there.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, if there's anything new. There's 300 acres in petition right now up in that area, so.
I think we'd have to walk that fine line between, should this apply to central business district, residential, recreational, skirt, sidestep, truck stop.
Should a truck stop have the same adjacent lighting, adjacent property lighting spill over as a?
I don't think we'd want to approach that quagmire that it would probably end up turning into. But no, something like this is definitely applicable to residential and estate, central business district, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, there could be language, I mean, in this example from Will County, number 2, what expressly exempt single-family detached houses, agricultural usage, our truck stop, we could add that, but I see what you're getting at.
I would caution you against that, especially if your truck stop is adjacent to residential.
Question against what?
Allowing
Exemption, yeah.
an exemption, maybe it's a modification of the 1-foot candle spilling over to adjacent similar occupancies. Maybe we modify that and allow, say egress lighting is about 6-foot candles spill over within a certain zoning district to a similar use. I wouldn't want a flat out exemption. I'd still want quantum.
Oh, and we definitely have to negotiate that delicately.
Right.
I mean, obviously, everything that's up at the truck stop now is, again, grandfathered in, but if there's a new proposal, then it would be subject to this. And then obviously there is a certain neighborhood directly opposite the other side of 90 from the truck stop.
Well, I guess the first order of business would be, I would be in favor of the creation and inclusion of an outdoor lighting ordinance within our village code, right? But I would be in favor of some form of this if we don't have one currently. I think that would be the first step, and then I would imagine it would be passing it back to staff to come up with something that, kind of at least fits the general desire of a lighting ordinance based on surrounding communities like you do for everything else for us, and come back with something that we can take a look at, amend, get on the books, and then, as the years go on, continue to add. Obviously, we'd like to get it right the first time, but, we'd like to get something on the books. Bruce, I appreciate you bringing this to our attention.
Who would actually enforce this? Would code enforcement or police?
Yeah, code enforcement.
Who actually is code enforcement?
So Safe Built, one of the staff members that they have assigned to Hampshire, his name is Ron Searle. And he's actually a retired city manager, that didn't like being retired. So he came and worked for Safe Built. He does a little bit of kind of zoning administrator work, and then he also does code enforcement for us for property maintenance code and things like that. He's very good, very thorough. He started with them, I want to say 2 months ago.
Okay. He's an employee of the village?
No, he's an employee of Safe Built.
Who?
Safe Built, our building
Third party.
inspectors and plan reviewers.
The only thing I see that I would look to add in here for under the exemption portion would be points 4 and 5 where it says the building ordinance. I would probably look at having it more detailed out to IBC and IFC. Because that way, if you're doing the IBC and IFC, IFC also includes residential as well as businesses. So that way it covers both portions.
We've had a similar conversation, I think it was about the daycare, where instead of making our own rules, we just refer to another body's codes and.
Do we have language that just says city code that encompasses all of our codes?
I mean, we could always just reference the village code.
Well, in our stuff, we have it where we've adopted the different codes.
National Electric Code.
The IBC, the IFC,
Say
the
next year,
IRC.
Hampshire wants to adopt NFPA 101, and that's added to our codes list. And we have to come back and add NFPA 101 egress lighting requirements here.
But what you're gonna find though too, is sometimes there's conflicts between IFC and NFPA 101. So we would have to go through this anyways at that point in time to be able to mix the two and whichever one's more strict. So I don't think it's limiting us.
But that, if we just say village code here in this little portion, that just refers to whatever we end up doing in the end.
Or can we make it a little bit more vague, Josh, and say the version of the NEC currently or presently adopted by the village? Can you leave it that way?
Yeah, we could definitely write something in that way. If there's conflicts, I'm not an expert on the building codes. If there's conflicts between the different building codes, then I don't know if you want to reference both or if you just want to say the stricter of currently adopted lighting regulations, building ordinance. I don't know. We'll come up with some language.
Yeah. I know generally you don't want to cherry pick the exact year that
Right.
your village approved.
Currently adopted is always
Yeah,
needed,
then you can refer back to it.
as amended from time to time.
I do have a small note here as far as the outdoor lighting recreational areas not to exceed 60 feet. Something I will look into as far as the ball field lights at Tuscany Woods, Chicago Park.
First read too.
All those are. Anything else? Any other discussion? Good one. No actual action needed on this one. No further questions, comments on that particular item. I will entertain a motion to authorize the chair to report the actions of this commission this evening with appropriate findings of fact and recommendations to the village board of trustees.
So moved.
Mr. Ravitch?
Aye.
Mr. Rosetti?
Aye.
Mr. Neal?
Aye.
Ms. Duhai?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mr. Ray, do we have anyone signed up to speak publicly this evening?
No, sir.
I do not believe I have any announcements for this commission.
Question.
Yeah, I didn't sign up to speak, but when you started the meeting, you approved the minutes from May 8th and then skipped over the new business. I take it there is no new business discussed.
No, we just took care of all the A, B, C, D, E, those are all new.
That was,
That's all your new business?
yeah, that was all of our new business.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I think I brought this up once before. Public comments on our agenda is at the end of the agenda. And, wouldn't it be more proper to have public comments before the new business? In case people want to speak on what we're going to be talking about? As it is.
It's up to the commission. It's been at the end and staff has never changed it. So if you would like it changed, Mr. DeSalli, they can set their prerogative, correct?
100% their prerogative.
I just think it would make more sense if somebody wants to talk to us about something, they should speak to us before we begin our deliberations.
Is there any correlation that falls under Robert's rules that puts it into that place? I haven't looked at it that deeply to know, so that would be the only caveat that I would see with moving it.
Village board meeting, as I said, public comments are always before the new business.
And the other logic that I can think of is that the planning and zoning commission tends to have a lot of public hearings, so it would potentially avoid people speaking on the same concepts or public comments and then again in the public hearing. If you put it at the end, the action's already been taken, but again, your prerogative. If you end up having a problem with people
So there's
speaking,
an argument for or against.
if you end up having a problem with people giving two of the same speech every night, then you can put it back near the end if you'd like. So I'll perhaps consult Mr. Brock before the next agenda and
Okay. No, I mean, it's a good discussion. And again, it's because we're more of an advisory commission to the village board, whose decision is generally final on what we recommend. I've always kind of thought the public comments fit fairly well towards the end for us. And then prior to the village board, their public comment comes before their votes. But no, Josh and I can discuss.
Well, once again, if somebody has to make a comment about, let's say we talked about chickens today. If somebody wanted to make a comment about chickens, they wouldn't be saying anything to us until after we voted.
But there'd be a public hearing.
They would be,
Yeah.
they
It is
would be
its own.
talking about it in the public hearing portion.
Well, in our agendas, we don't always have public hearings.
The pro would be, like you're talking about, that we could get their point of view before we deliberate and decide.
Exactly.
The flip side is, they won't know what our thoughts are and what the deliberation was until, because we hadn't done it yet. So they wouldn't have had a chance to glean information, knowledge and stuff, and maybe change their mind, because we wouldn't have given them the chance. So I see both sides, frankly.
Okay.
Here's looking into.
Can we have two public comments?
Still want to open that can of worms?
In that vein,
And now
what
for
were you
real.
here to speak about?
Yeah.
What were you here to speak about?
Oh, I didn't speak on nothing.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure we didn't steamroll you.
Thank you.
No, no one signed up to speak publicly this evening.
I don't have any other announcements other than that the staff does plan to have business for the commission at both meetings in July. Be July 10th and 24th.
Mr. Chairman, I will not be here the 10th.
Mr. Chairman, I have one announcement this evening. Earlier today, I submitted my resignation from the Planning and Zoning Commission effective at the end of this year. I've had some recent changes in professional and my personal life, one including my recent promotion within the city of Elgin to Director of Public Works. It takes up a considerable amount of my time. And weighing and balancing needs and times and, family time and professional time, something had to fall off. And I didn't believe that moving forward, I'd be able to give a fair shake to the village, to this committee, and reviewing and all of the stuff that is required of this position. So I submitted an email to Commissioner Barak, village manager Jay Hedges, Josh, as well as Mike Reed today, letting them know that I will be here until the end of the year or until they can find a replacement, whichever comes first. I thought it was fair to at least give the village some time to replace, but also, make sure that I'm here to serve out, especially with the light properties coming up, serve out my portion through that process. So just wanted to make it known to everyone here that that's my intention. And it's been a ride, so
Congratulations, sir.
thank you.
I don't like it, you.
Yeah, profoundly unhappy.
Can we reject his? Let's take a vote.
Yeah. Public comments.
Yeah, public comments will come in.
Yeah, public comments are closed. Well, thank you guys so much. It's been a blast.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:35.
Second.
Mr. Revich,
Aye.
Mr. Rossetti,
Aye.
Mr. Neal,
Aye.
Ms. Duhai.
Aye.
Mr. McBride.
Aye.
All right.